Continuing on the Homestead Tusken. Now there's a weird dilemma, right? I'm super happy with how this looks. And I want to see it all on a mask. That's not the right step. The next step should be making molds of these so I can resin cast them. Because this resin is not, the strongest resin in the world. And I'm not a big fan of having castable resins, photosensitive resins, as custom pieces are a little brittle. But I really want to see it on a mask. I'm talking with Kim and she's like, the right thing to do is to make the mold. Then it occurred to me that I have an entire set of just slightly untextured pieces. So in this one, I'm going to prime these, get them ready for mold. May even get to the mold, I'm not sure yet. And we're going to do the other set fully on the mask so we can see exactly what it's going to look like. Let me bring you in so you can see how these turned out. So these are the bone plates. And oh my goodness, I am super happy with that. I didn't think I would be. I thought I'd be like, it's all right. But I absolutely love how these turned out. All the textures. Oh, I'm excited for it. So like I said, first step is we're going to go over all of these with another bath in the isopropyl just to make sure it's nice and clean. Sometimes the resins and primers don't always get along. So I want this completely primed and sealed before we even talk about molds. But first, clean everything up. I'm mistaken. The order that these pieces go together isn't always self-evident, which is why I tried to do this line on the back. Didn't quite work out how I wanted it to. So instead, I'm heating up my iron, my soldering iron, and I'm going to write little numbers. I'm going to write 1, 2, 3, 4 on down to 9 in the top inside corner. That way they can't get switched. There's no question about it. I would normally use my Dremel for this. I can't seem to find it. It's somewhere. I don't know where. It's a multi-used piece. A bunch of us, it's a shared piece of equipment. And shared pieces of equipment aren't always easy to find when they're shared. So, I'm going to have to use my soldering iron. Resin is not good to breathe, which is why we're just going to skip through this part real quick. After a little bit of airing out, the ones that I'm going to make into molds are going to go into the into my resin, or not my resin, into my isopropyl alcohol bath, the spinning thing, and you give them a good 15 minutes in there. Let it spin, let it soak, let it do its thing. While we're waiting, we'll play with the other pieces. All right. Got some extra monk's cloth, got some twine, and the glue gun's warming up. This is just a test. When I plan on doing the actual thing, I wouldn't use hot glue. I mean, it might be fine, but I need something a little more durable. Maybe some 2-part epoxy. It'll probably be hot glue. I'm doing 4 lengths of just twine because I want to double it up. That'll make sense in a minute. So I'm just going to glue this in place. Luckily it's a little chilly out today. So it almost feels comfortable. All right, I got one side done. I'm gonna bring you in, or I'm gonna move over. I think I'm gonna move over here so we can get a better view of what I'm doing with this. So I've doubled it up just so I can overlap it and have it twice as strong. Just putting some glue in the track, gluing it down. If I wasn't planning on making a mold of this, I would make this completely round so it's an actual channel, but that's difficult to mold. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but you know, as close as I get. Now we're going to attach the helmet. This just goes in the center. Luckily, if you just kind of set it there, it'll center itself. And again, since this is just a test, I'm not terribly worried about it looking right. So when you make an outer robe, there's that scrap that you have to cut off the edge to get it to actually fit proper. That's what this is. Just to cut off. Since it doesn't really matter, just gonna glue it on. Now we're gonna glue, working our way up. And just the slightest bit of a gap, just so it can flow, move a little better. Right, I want to be able to do the thing. As long as we keep it at about 2 3/4, I think it'll look fine. It doesn't take a lot, because like I said, this is not a permanent fixture. And I'm going to keep gluing. And I'll see you on the other side. It's glued on. Now I'm just going to trim along the edge. Didn't have to be exact here. Because, you know, not only is it a Tusken, it's just a prototype. When I make the actual one, I will probably cut it beforehand and then glue it in place. That'll also make my sizing right. Because I kind of waver a little bit here and there. This is just proof of concept. Now this just gets glued onto that. Just forgot to hit record for the first bit there. All I did was peel it back and glue it down. Just applying a decent amount of glue. And smushing it down. When I'm making the actual mask, I'll be way more worried about alignment. I need to make sure everything fits kind of where it's supposed to. Doesn't have to be perfect. So I have not seen this yet, so we are going to see it together for the first time. All right, moment of truth. Let's see how it looks. Off center, but not bad. You see that? What are you seeing? There. That looks pretty good. This should be over a bit more. I have to line it up with that, but these also need to be back a touch. I may have to put in an offset so everything just goes back just a little bit. I think that right there is probably closer. I may print out an offset that's flat and curved so everything will go together properly. Not bad. Let me do some touch up. We'll see where we're at. So for those of you who doubt the durability of hot glue, I'm pulling. It does not want to come off. There it goes. That was not easy. Hot glue works pretty well. So there it is. Now it's doing a weird thing in here, but that's because I pushed it forward. If I peel it back off and put I still think I need to put a spacer in there to make it look right. Just so that's all nice and flat like the rest of it. But I think that's it. I think that is a rousing success. Not too shabby. That turned out way better than expected. Well, it turned out exactly as I'd hoped. So now for the new pieces, right? We're making a mold. The first thing, certain UV resins inhibit certain rubbers from curing. Easy way around that is to just finish the part first. If there's no exposed resin, there's no way for it to mess with the rubber I'm going to use. Savvy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime them, right? Front and back, side to side. Then I'll let the... Wrong song. So we're going to prime both sides. The whole thing has to be fully primed. And the thing about primer's sole purpose is to bond to things and make itself bondable to other things. So if I coat this in primer, and then put it in the rubber I'm going to use, rubber's going to want to stick to the primer. So keep that in mind. You want to have a clear coat on everything. And honestly, the easiest way to do it is to just fully finish exactly how you want it to look, these pieces, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a primer, probably do a bronze coat, maybe a wash, then a clear coat. But first, primer. My garage is a mess, so you might not watch this. Everything's been primed. I do a coat of Krylon rust protector. It's not the paint I wanted to use, but it's the paint I got, so it's the paint we're going to use. 2 light coats. We're going to do 1 light coat, flip it, another light coat, and then flip it, another light coat, and flip it, another light coat. So 4 light coats, 2 per side. And then we're going to clear it. That's it. I ended up using this. It's Rust-Oleum Custom Premium Lacquer Paint. Metallic gold. This stuff is, oh my goodness. It's been hours. Yeah. But it looks fantastic. I mean, look at this. Just look at this. Let me bring this over to you. You can really see the texture in it. It turned out fantastic. Okay, so now I'm going to check every single piece. Make sure you don't see any primer anywhere, which is why I went with a nice bright gold. That is super thin. That might be a problem. I may put a little dab of hot glue in there before we cast them, just to beef that up a bit. But we're going to go over everything again with a clear coat. And I, as usual, using Duplicolor Perfect Match Clear. Stuff dries in like 15 minutes. It's amazing. So, I'm going to, see, like right in here, no paint. No paint. Which is why we're going over everything with clear. Because the clear will set in there. It doesn't matter whether it's the gold in or the clear in, it's just going to cover it and make sure that there's no primer exposed. So that's what I'm going to do now. See you in a minute. Everything looks fantastic, right? It's all primed, and it is stunning. We're now at a point where I need to make a mold. That's what we're going to do now. As soon as I clean up just a little bit. So I have this old piece of lumber from a bookshelf that's no longer a bookshelf, which should be perfect for what we need to do. I thought about making these two-part molds, but I think I'm going to make them a cut mold. I'm going to beef this up a little bit with hot glue. Here, look, let me show you. So if you look, these bits, super thin. Not just regular thin, but like real thin. And I am worried that that's where they'll snap if they snap. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill those in with a bit of hot glue. I'm going to line everything up, glue it down, cover the whole thing in resin. Well, in rubber. Step one is to glue everything down. So I'm going to do that. Probably skip to a little bit farther down the road. We'll see. We'll see. So now if I make this a separate piece, it's decisions, right? Because I could make this a separate piece, make this a smaller mold. I think that's what we're going to do. This one's going to be separate. I can make a bunch of little molds as opposed to one big mold. The bigger the mold, the more rubber we're going to have to waste. On about 1/2 inch all the way around. So I need to make a 5x4 box. Again, I'm just using the same scrap lumber. Since this is going to be a two-part mold, that's a little more complicated, but it is what it is. Still not yet. While I'm waiting, I'm going to cut some lumber. I'll be right back. Now I'm just hot gluing these down. The hot glue can end up being where I pour my resin in the end. All right. Now I'm just gluing this down as well. A lot of people take mold making way too seriously. I would normally be using Legos at this point. That's not overtly serious. I'm also using lumber or wood. Wood is quite porous. This may be a mistake on my part, but it's what I have lying around, so it's what I'm using. This lumber has been finished. So, it's not like it's completely porous. It's got a coat of clear on it. I don't like where that sits. We're going to pop these two off. Jeez Louise. I'm not worried about perfect molds. Doesn't really matter. If I wanted exact 90, yeah, I could, like I said, Legos. I've used Legos in previous builds. I just don't feel like messing with them today. Alright, now go over every edge with hot glue to make sure we're sealed. So I'm only going over this once with you guys, and then I'm going to do probably 6 or 7 more. Cut that off for now. I think we're good. Let's mix this up some rubber. Using actual mixing cups. Can't find my plastic cups anywhere, so I guess we'll have to do it the right way. Alright. A. B. Not quite sure how much I'm going to need. Let's go with 150. 150 sounds good. $175 sounds good. Heavy 175. 175 no less. 5 extra. Extra is better than not enough. Although, since I'm making multiples, a little extra is not that big of a deal either. I mentioned how much I dislike these big jars. They're not as easy to use as the smaller ones. Of course, smaller ones aren't that easy to use either because they have huge openings. Another with a pour spout. That should about do it. Gonna let it settle for a minute. Make sure they're even. Well, mix them together. If I am being completely honest, that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's too much resin, or too much rubber. I don't like, because this mixing cup's going to be very full, which will make it extremely difficult to mix. So we're going to do this in batches. Probably going to pour half of this in, mix it all up, pour the next half, mix it all up. I don't degas my rubber. I probably should, but I don't. And I don't vacuum my my molds. There's no pressure, no. I just do the thing, and it usually works fine. I'm doing stupid Star Wars costumes, right? I don't need super accuracy. What I do usually turns out pretty okay. There's something to be said for results. And just keep mixing till it's streak free. I'm scraping along the bottom and pulling it up. It's not quite folding, but you can see it from here. Most people don't mix their rubber enough. I am also most people. Now we're going to pour in a very thin, very controlled, very slow stream. I'm going to pull you in so you can see the mold. All right. Stuff takes 6 hours to set. Have plenty of time. Don't rush it at this point. Luckily I have this large cavity here. That is perfect for pouring. Because it's going to flow wherever it feels it needs to. Since I'm doing such a thin stream, there's not many bubbles that survive this. Which is why I don't degas. I'm stopped for a minute and I want to raise this front end a bit just to give me a little. I have pieces of lumber. How convenient is that? So when I raise it, it's going to want to slowly go to the end rather than just flooding in. So we just take our time. Continue pouring. I am pouring a bit faster now that I've got a good layer in. I may actually not have enough rubber. And I do not. That's kind of neat. So now if you notice, lots of darker in there, which means I didn't mix well enough. I knew that was going to happen, so I'm not terribly worried about it. But something you should try to avoid. So I'm going to mix up some more, do the exact same thing, fill it up to the top. Molds have all been poured. Couple of leaks. We fixed them. Not that big of a deal. Now the fun part is we have to wait 6 hours. Unfortunately, 6 hours is past when I plan on having this uploaded. So, this is where we're going to call it. I know it's a cliffhanger. Will it work or will it not? I have no idea. I have an idea. All the face pieces are ready to go. So, all that's left at this point is to cast, or wait for this to dry, demold it, or wait for this to cure, demold it, cast everything, and see where we're at. I've got a couple of days next week off that I planned on just, if everything goes right, just casting a bunch of these, because there's, like I said, there's about 5 of them that need to go out. After that, I don't know what I'm doing. But if you want to find out what I'm doing, and I want to find out what I'm doing, maybe you should, you know, at this point, if you're not subscribed and you've made it to the end, now you're just doing it out of spite. Don't be on hard. Don't live life on hard mode if there is no need. Click subscribe, like, maybe comment, create some kind of a discourse going on. Not a discourse. Either way, I'll see you next time.